do not arrive with a clipboard and a badge. They arrive with warmth and patience, and a question shaped like care. Tell me about your past. What was it like growing up? What really happened with her? The tone is velvet. The timing is late and private. You are tired, relieved to be heard, hungry to be known. You begin to talk. You think you are building intimacy. They are building a map. Predatory curiosity does not feel like an interrogation. It feels like being understood. Every confession becomes a landmark. Every landmark becomes a route back to your throat. You only notice the route when one night your own sentences show up in an argument like receipts. When a detail you gave once, in trust, returns labeled as proof against you. When a soft, "help me understand," becomes a hard, "you said." Oversharing felt like closeness until it felt like leverage. The questions never stopped. Only your permission did. Why does the trap work? Because disclosure feels good. Functional MRI studies are not required to know this. Your body has taught you since childhood that speaking secrets produces relief, that naming a thing dries it out, that letting someone see you removes the weight of carrying yourself alone. The relief is real. The cost is hidden. The cost arrives when the one who holds your story holds it as currency. They do not need to lie to own you. They need only to remember. With enough remembered sentences, they can reconstruct any fight in their favor. With enough remembered tears, they can schedule a plea that will land. With enough remembered fears, they can predict the hour your boundaries will melt. The cleverness is not in the questions. It is in the archiving. La Rochefoucauld said it with the kind of cruelty only someone who has spent time in salons can produce. We confess our little faults to persuade people that we have no great ones. Let the maxim do two jobs in your hand. First, let it indict the performances you have seen. The man who unpacks a curated struggle in his first week with you is not proving depth. He is laundering his image. Second, let it check your own impulse to use confession as a tool. Sometimes you overshare not to be known, but to manage what is known, to preempt judgment, to control perception with a well-lit flaw, while the structural weaknesses remain unexamined. That move attracts predators because it announces that information in your world is already for sale. Benjamin Franklin closed the door on any romantic argument for trust without prudence. 3 may keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. The line stings because it is funny and because it is true. It is not a command to live paranoid. It is a reminder that the physics of privacy do not change because the room feels holy. When you speak, you create an object. The object can be copied, quoted, forwarded, summarized, weaponized. If it cannot be borne by the worst mouth that might one day hold it, do not place it into a mouth at all. You can love a man and still respect Franklin's math. Love without math is a stage. The stage does not end well. Predatory curiosity has signatures. Notice the way context is used as a pry bar. For context precedes questions that are none of their business. Just curious precedes questions that have already been answered. Help me understand precedes demands for postmortems that will later be presented like court transcripts. Notice the way repetition turns soft facts hard. The same question arrives in different forms over weeks until your story snaps to the contours they prefer. Notice the way the questions cluster at your weakest hours. After intimacy, after defeat, after celebration. Late at night when your defenses are tired and your mouth wants to keep the warmth going. Notice the way they share little in return, or share theater in return. The depth mismatch is the method. When you match their question with a question, they pivot to philosophy, or make a joke, or compliment your openness to buy the next answer. The pattern says more than their eyes do. Why do you answer? Because you want to be known. Because loneliness is an ache that demands a salve. Because the man who is always measured never rests. Because you are taught that honesty will rescue you even when the room is not safe. Because a doctrine of authenticity has been sold to you without the footnotes that describe pacing, context, and reciprocity. Because you mistake endurance for loyalty and call starvation faith, staying in conversations that make your stomach hard because your image of a good man includes being available on demand to anyone who says the word concern. Because compliments about your depth feel like proof you are not shallow, so you keep paying in memory to maintain the mirror they're holding. Predatory curiosity is not a personality type. It is a tactic used by many types whenever control is cheaper than care. The tactic runs on 3 engines. First, asymmetry. They know more about you than you know about them. Second, ambiguity. No explicit agreement governs what happens to what is said, so the social contract is written on mood and rewritten whenever leverage is needed. Third, deniability. Questions wear compassion, so when you resist, you are painted as secretive or cold. The symmetry test is your first instrument. Stop answering questions that are not also asked of them. Ask your own. When the room resists symmetry, believe the room. Silence is not rudeness. It is diagnostics. There is a shape to the questions that should raise your guard. Why repeated more than twice without any new facts introduced? Hypotheticals that expand scope until you are opining on your own guilt and universals. Invitations to compare present relationships with past failures, so that the pain now belongs to yesterday, and today's dynamic receives a free pass. Requests to retell your worst scene in the third person under the banner of objectivity. Attempts to make you rate your pain on a scale, to freeze it into a number that can be held up later as evidence that you overreacted or minimized. Each move turns a living experience into a tool. The tool will be used. Predatory curiosity rarely hunts alone. It travels with gifts. Gifts of agreement. Gifts of mirroring. I've felt exactly that. No one gets you like I do. You can say anything to me. Mirroring is not proof of safety. It is proof of skill. Safe men do not need to match your every sentiment to keep you talking. They are content to let your story be yours. Keep a private archive of non-negotiables and guard it. The archive is not a list of topics you are ashamed of. It is a list of topics that are never for trade because they are the load-bearing beams of your life. Family details that are not yours alone to tell. Financial specifics that can be used to move you against your better judgment. Past mistakes that will be used to build a frame you will be forced to live inside. The archive is not about secrecy. It is about preventing your life from being turned into tool in theater. Matching depth to reliability is not cynicism. It is calibration. Reliability is not how they make you feel on a good night. Reliability is the record of what they do with what you give. Do they store your words only to bring them out when scared or spiteful? Do they paraphrase with accuracy or persuasion? Do they protect your context when recounting you to others? Or do they extract your quotes and sell them as gossip, disguised as, "I'm worried about him"? Do they place your story into rooms where it cannot be defended? Do they ever voluntarily erase a detail you regret sharing? Or do they treat your regret as weakness? Reliability is measured across months. Set a credit limit on disclosure that rises only when payments arrive on time in the currency you asked for. If you never asked for anything and they never paid, that tells you which way the leverage points. Interrogate the tempo that makes you talk. A clever questioner uses silence to make you feel it, compliments to soften your spine, vulnerability theater to trigger reciprocity, and urgency to deny you the time needed to ask whether this belongs to the next hour or to your journal. The antidote is boring. Slow the moment down. Ask yourself if you would put this in an email to a man you admire. Ask yourself if your body will be proud of this sentence tomorrow morning. Ask yourself if the question would be tolerated by you if someone asked your brother in public. Ask yourself if the words in your mouth are yours, or if you are now performing a version of yourself that flatters the room. If the answers make your chest tight, you owe nothing. You owe nothing even if they frown. You owe nothing even if they repeat your name in a hurt voice. You owe nothing even if they tell you that openness is the only path to closeness. Closeness without respect is a cage with comfortable pillows. Franklin's sentence is not a call to isolation. It is a pricing tool. It tells you that secrecy is fragile, and that the man who protects your fragility must first be able to protect his mouth from its appetite for status. Watch how they speak about men not in the room. A man who treats other people's confidences as entertainment will treat yours as currency. A man who cannot say, "That is not mine to share," will not protect anything you hand him. A man whose social standing is built on being the curator of scandal will make your life part of his exhibit. You are not judging him morally. You are pricing the risk of disclosure. The price is not what he deserves. The price is what your future can bear. La Rochefoucauld specialized in exposing the self-flattery that rots judgment. Hypocrisy is the homage vice pays to virtue. It applies here. The predator will dress his appetite in virtue. I just want to understand you. I hate secrets. I value transparency. The virtue words do not clean the appetite. They decorate it. Transparency is a governance principle, not a dating policy. Understanding can be a prelude to compassion or a prelude to conquest. Hate of secrets in a man who cannot hold his tongue is not a principle. It is a confession. Take him at his word. He hates secrets. Do not hand him yours. You will be told that boundaries are unromantic, that pacing is cowardice, that caution is fear. You will be told that intensity proves destiny, and that only the broken worry about leverage. Consider who profits if you accept those axioms. The man who wants a full dossier before offering any deposit. The man who wants forgiveness in advance for using your pain to win later debates. The man who wants to write your story himself so he never has to face the parts of his he is ashamed to mention. Do not argue with him. Remove the fuel. Stop offering supply. When the questions arrive, treat them like any other request. Match depth to reliability. Keep the archive closed. Decline asymmetry. Ask your own questions. Watch whether the room can sustain fairness without sulking. Predatory curiosity has a cousin called confessional blackmail. You reveal something small. It is received with a dramatic show of acceptance. Encouraged, you reveal something large. Months later, the small is dragged out as evidence that you cannot be trusted around the large. You are taught to accept the framing to prevent the large from being exposed. You pay with smaller and smaller pieces of yourself to avoid a big scene. You think you are preserving dignity. You are financing a narrative in which your integrity is always on trial. Franklin's joke becomes a steel rule here. If the worst of your private life would ruin you in a room that matters, change your life or change your room before anyone else is involved. The risk premium on shame is too high to borrow against at predatory rates.